Creator of all that is, it seems much precious time is wasted on the subject of our freedom and free will. We hear, what you resist, you attract, yet resist we must. So guide us here, our humble request, and shield us while we focus our attentions on what we do want, not on what we find detestable and deplorable. We know this distasteful awareness of vile evil must be seen to know what it is we must never allow. Yet it is so very dark and fearsome, many, too many, dare not go there. So we pray ever that we are given courage, fortitude, direction, and protection as we fight this battle of evil against your divine goodness. Let our will be thy will, and so it is.
Thank you, Charlie.
My pleasure.
My name's Ron Vroman. I'm the old white man talking head for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. Yesterday, Charlie and I had lunch with a bar attorney, an Oregon State bar attorney. We met him serendipitously. That means the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly in the we. And the guy is a nice guy. He's pleasant, good conversation, nice to be around, well mannered. I like him a lot. And we had a lunch together a week or so ago, and it was good. I didn't think a lunch with the bar attorney would go that well, considering how far apart we are. He's into de facto, and on the phone when I met him, I read to him de facto from Black's Law, telling him he was part of an illegal and illegitimate de facto incorporated governance. His law form was criminal, and he took it quite well. And we had a good lunch and decided to do it again. I got to pay the first time. He got to pay the second time. And tit for tat's good. So as an opportunity for us at the us part of this, I had two really nice women in our group invite themselves into the next meeting with this bar attorney.
I paid for my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cynthia couldn't make it because she could only make one of the 2 days that were available. And bona fides. Charlie has all the bona fides you could want. And I think she helped drive Martha from the bench at the Oregon Supreme Court. And I'd like Charlie to give us her point of view on what she saw at the second meeting of the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly and an Oregon State Bar attorney that has one point of view that he sees this prism from that's the same as ours. That's how I see it. How do you see it, Charlie?
It's the same as ours, but like a prism, it has many facets and you can't see them all at once. I think that's the best way to address that metaphor. He sees my perception, he sees everything in this reality as one jurisdiction, the de facto. And he can't relate at all, even though he's, I won't say what party he's ascribed to, but even though he's more open-minded, I'll just put it that way, and certainly well learned. He didn't really know any of the references that Ron pulled up to as topics of discussion or evidence or law, legal and lawful statutes and um, laws that have been in case law that they should be following. My impression was that he has totally been swept into the belief that this is the way it is. There's nothing that can change it. It's just what it is. There was a shrug and a laugh because I don't feel that he felt like he was compelled at all to challenge a system that he's bought into. That's just my quick overview. I think the real issue is jurisdiction and unwillingness to adhere to the laws, the Constitution, and the guidelines that were established early on. And one other thing is that he emphasized more than once that the counties and states, certainly the states, have priority over anything federal, and that and referring to the Constitution. And that's not how we see it at all. So I yield. You're muted.
There it is. That's that old man thing jumping in again. What do you think about bona fides? When when we discussed who we were and what we were doing, and then asked him who he was and what he was doing and how he fit into this situation, like Farah and Barr and all of those things.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too, because I interjected periodically because I didn't feel that he was really getting to the essence or the point of what we do versus what he sees as existing and superseding everything that we have come from. So, bona fides wise, the issue of Farah came up. He had his phone handy and was looking a lot of things that Ron was referring to, was unfamiliar with a lot of it, or interpreted things differently than we see it. For example, he doesn't see himself as a bar attorney being a foreign entity. And there was quite a bit of discussion around that, using the example of double citizenship and that kind of thing. So I think he denies that he really needs to be FARA registered, that he really is an entity or a foreign agent who is practicing a law form that's foreign to our land and soil, not established originally as common law, and as a different common law form than Britain. So I yield.
I remember part of that as he, I'm not sure you can say denied, but he sloughed off with a chuckle and a shrug, I think, when we talked about, or I brought up the 12 presumptions in law, that
Mhm.
you're making presumptions, and the difference between pro se and sui juris and who we are and the body, mind, spirit. And he was almost like he wanted to deny that. And I think it's really clear, but he doesn't see it the same way, and that confuses me.
Well, I see it as many of the discussions we have with people who are not involved, such as we are, who haven't really wrangled with these issues and turned them inside out and backwards and upside down and totally vetted them in terms of how we see it. And so, as our education system, certainly as the bar, the the lawyers who are trained are no different, and attorneys are no different than our college students who have a certain direction that they're being taught. And I was really frustrated, I have to say, yesterday, as nice as he was and willing to continue the conversation, and I really appreciated that. He wasn't blustery or argumentative. He was, but he held a position to me of not really having any clarity about the differentiation or the importance of the personhood, the people that we are, as apart from the system that he sees as being corrupted and utilizing us for its own ends.
He
But
accepts the system. He accepts that evil.
yeah, he
Yeah,
accepts
he
it, and he's
does.
not willing to go against it on any level. What came to mind was the frog, seething frog, who jumped out of the hot water because he saw and felt what was going on, and this was a whole different situation. To kind of shrug, and it reminded me of how Color of Law has happened, because it just, that slow, steady creep of changing
That's
things
what
and
it
being
is.
willing to go along with, and saying, well, but that's how it is. And so you shrug and then you laugh. That's what a lot of our comedy shows are about. It's like you laugh at something that's so detestable or unkind to, to humanity.
Yes,
And
yes,
yet, because you can laugh at it, and it's kind of a jest that relieves the angst of what it is that you're really feeling at a deeper level. Because you can laugh and kind of blow it off, then it doesn't, it doesn't carry the weight in you that you want to have the urge to do something about it. I yield.
yeah, yeah. I think we got to wade into them. I'm not sure. That's why I'm in an assembly instead of doing the lone wolf thing. But I'm really, really uh, convinced that we have to, in groups of four, just like the instructions that we're reading tell us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what four of us can do, and who we are: the court, the assembly, the grand jury, and the righteous indignation of who we represent.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of metaphorically speaking, how do you drum that up? But we do it, and if four of us, any four,
Mm-hmm.
confront any one of them, and I use the example sheriffs, it could just as easily be mayors or city councils or whomever you are. All of these people are required. They're actually persons when you see
Mm-hmm.
them, in their office or in their official capacity. They've morphed into the all cap version of their name, and they've bought into the de facto. So when you address those folks, you have to do it in groups of four, and you have to demand of them their oath of office and proof that they are who they are. What are their bona fides? Who are you?
Right.
And and demand that of them, because we know who we are when me and you and Ray and Brandon get together to do the work of being uh, a man or a woman on the land and soil. When we know the job, we know what has to be done. And so we all know what there is to do, and we know what their requirements are. And on Oregon, they actually have to take the oath to the proper oath and the proper constitution, and God has got to be included, and they've got to do it in front of four of us. I yield.
I think this would be a good time to read our updated LTA.
Excellent.
Okay.
Show it
So,
to them so,
let's see here.
and we can get William to put it up on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't printed this out yet with the last final of it, but
And thank you, Cal Washington.
yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to have to do it this way. So this is living testimony in the form of an affidavit of truth. This is what we have each of the people involved on Oregon who wish to join our jury pool and consider themselves with their bona fides the man or woman with their progeny on the land and soil in Oregon. Credentials: 18 years of age or older on Oregon, a non-US citizen, a non-state national or state citizen, not a foreign agent or with an oath to a foreign entity, such as federal corporate governance employee, military, sworn law enforcement or peace officer to another jurisdiction, a member of an attorney's bar, member of a city, county, state, or federal court. Article 1, Section 1 of Oregon's Constitution, circa 1859, and there's a footnote on that at the bottom. The United States of America's Constitution, circa 1859, Civilian Court of Record, and Article 3, 1 Supreme Court claiming original jurisdiction found in our Amendment 7 Common Law Court, whose jury verdict has no appeal in law. Amendments 1, 2, and 4. I am sui juris, in my own right, a man or woman with my progeny, nunc pro tunc, which means now for then. And then on Oregon, without the state of Oregon, aka state of Oregon, all caps, within the United States of America, the de jure constitutional Republican form of government, sworn and affirmed before me. And then they write their name, date, etc. And then it's witnessed by 2 or more of us who have already had our bona fides.
What iteration of that is that, Charlie?
Well, that's the last one when you and I talked about it and before you put something into Skype that I haven't downloaded yet. So there might be one minor thing that needs to be revised, but go ahead.
No, I mean since the first one in.
Oh my gosh. I think it's the 6th, maybe something like
Yeah,
that. We keep
at least
we
that.
keep refining it because
Yes,
there's a
things
lot
change.
to it, in terms of who we are, who we think we are, who we're affiliated with or oath to or not. And, basically it's very simple. We're either a man or a woman or a child on the land and soil on Oregon. And we know that we have a creator who gave us life and breath and the ability to create and enjoy our lives. So that's basic. But what we see and why we have the bona fides is that so many people get pulled off track by the persons, the entities, the powers that be and should not, who have influenced us away from knowing our true inherent value and source.
Yes, agreed.
So it's simple, but it's complicated.
I'd like to have that somehow in a template form so that anybody could download it and fill it out saying all the stuff that has to be to identify who they are, space for a couple of paragraphs. One claim, this is what happened to me, short paragraph. The desired results I want to see from this is, and what they want to see, like submitted to a grand jury, and here's my bona fides, and submit that to our Article 3 court in Amendment 7, and they could print it right off our website.
Hmm.
Could we do that?
I imagine so. I don't know why not. And between you and William and I, we can get it on. Sure. Not till Sunday or after for me.
It's not like we jump into these things and have time to do them. Life gets in the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yes. Here's something that I found out and I wanted to bring up. Uh, Yesterday after lunch, which was 2.5 hours, something like that. It was a long time and it was intense. And the food was pretty good. Uh, and the service was good. The atmosphere was nice.
Mhm.
Nobody wanted us to get out of there or anything. It was
It was
a
relaxed. Yeah, it was
yes,
actually relaxed for what we were dealing with.
which was intense as hell.
Yeah.
Everything that we could say, this guy would thumb it on his telephone, and he was good. He knew how to maneuver
Hmm.
his world, and he could find stuff. And he didn't want to read the law. He wanted to read the case law of what happened when somebody tried to apply this.
And one more thing that kept coming up over and over, and finally I addressed it, which was suit. Everything is about a lawsuit. You're going to sue somebody, either civil or criminal. It's a suit. It's
Yep.
like, and that's not what law is for. I mean, I think the courts are not about suits. They're about resolving issues that come up that are violations of our unalienable rights. And that was even challenged by him.
Yes.
He said that he's capable of denying any of his own unalienable rights far more anyone else could. And if he can, then anyone can. He made that okay somehow. Isn't that right? That's how I interpreted how he responded to that.
Yeah.
Even the unalienable right of air, breathing.
Yes, he said he could deny that by drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the ideas that he carries in his thought process are wrong. They're they they're like from another life form.
Ideation. It's a different ideation of things. Interpretation of everything that was brought up is different from his perspective. That was what was really surprising to me. I found myself
Yeah.
toward the end of lunch being rather bored, quite honestly, because there wasn't anything that we brought up that he wouldn't, that he denied everything really for the most part.
Chuckling.
Our Yeah, shrug and chuckle. But but he was present. I
Yep.
will say that, and I appreciated that very much. And he wasn't argumentative or combative. He just doesn't see it, and he kept saying, "I don't see how this is workable." Or no, he didn't say that. What was the word he
Yeah.
used?
I don't
Uh,
recall the word he used, but I know what part of the conversation you're talking about.
he saw that we were in two different worlds. That's not his words, those are mine, but
Yeah.
that's how I saw it. It's like his world is what it is, and that's how it is. It's not going to change. And I don't get you guys. That's basically, I don't see where you're coming from.
When you we rode in one car from where I lived to the restaurant and back, and Charlie had parked there, so she got back to her car and I was home. So uh, we sat and talked. Charlie left, and it went on for 3 hours and 10 minutes, I think, total. Probably a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes after Charlie left, and there was some good punches in that one. We got to the where is the dividing line? It's not uh, liberal and conservative because he says he's sitting there in his position, which he considers a lot of the people he knows are on the left in the law practice, and a lot of them were on the right. And he didn't care very much for either one of them's interpretation of the way things were. Did you get it that way too?
Not that I got it that he said that. I got it that he's kind of considers himself moderate and in the middle. And maybe that's why he wasn't so argumentative, is that he was feeling like he was in a moderate position. But my feeling is that quite the contrary, he has bought into the very uh, progressive liberal notion of law and law forms and where we are as a society, as a culture.
I
And
agree.
and so uh, what you declare or think yourself as, or of whatever part of the, that's where the bona fides come in. um, but to me it was a prime example of color of law, accepting the jurisdiction and where it takes you and where it goes and where
Yep.
you're led and what's required of you. And therefore, that's what it is, and you can't fight it because it's just it.
Yes. And it, ha ha ha, every time.
Hmm.
So we're in the car and we're having that discussion, and somehow it came to unalienable rights again. And I said, "What about travel?" He says, "Travel is not driving a car.
Mm.
Driving a car is a privilege. The use of a car is so much far and way above just travel that it's a privilege." I said,
Whoa.
my head fell off. I put my head back on like the pumpkin guy, and whoa. Uh, and can you back that up? You know what the law says, don't you? The law says, and he says, "Oh, I don't know, no, no," and he's denying all of this. He says, "Look, there's a difference between driving a car and just traveling, and that has to be controlled. It's too dangerous to just leave that uncontrolled." I said, "Okay, let's go. Walking, we agree. Walking's travel. Yeah, drive. What about horse? Yeah, that's a horse pulling a carriage or a wagon. Yeah, that's travel. Bicycle. Yeah, that's travel. Canoe, rowboat. Yeah, sailboat. And sailboat. He did he did one of these. How big? Well, wait a minute. The size of the sailboat determines whether or not you can use that for travel." He said, "Yeah." "What about airplanes?" "Oh, that's not travel. That's a privilege." Okay. What do you know about mortgages? It says that if somebody has a debt of yours, they're supposed to have the debt instrument that proves they have the debt. That's their bona fide to make the case that they are really the one that owns the mortgage on your home. And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have?" "Yeah, I do, and I signed the papers. I incurred that debt, and uh, yeah, I have my copies of that." And he says, "And they sell that around to different companies, and I may pay my mortgage to whoever has the debt." Okay. Isn't it a deal in law that if you got the debt, you got to provide the copy of the contract that you're enforcing? He says, "It's not necessary. I have my copy." And I said, "Okay. All right. You have your copy of a document. Is the document a lawful document or is the document a fraud?" It doesn't make any difference. I signed the debt instrument. Okay. That's that's how a lot of people see it. And I agree that that's how a lot of people see it. And I was a mortgage broker on Oregon, and I thought I knew what the hell was going on, and I didn't have a clue. And go
Signing a
ahead.
mortgage says that we're a tenant.
Yes,
We don't own it.
yes. You're
They and
a tenant in common or in joint tenancy with.
yeah, and we
Yes,
can be evicted if we don't
yes,
do this and thus. And so,
yes. But it is not a mortgage on the home. That's a fiction.
well, it's a privilege to have a car. That's why we sign our title over to the government.
Oh, wait a minute.
Uh, uh,
I when the minute I got in the house, I called Richard and I said, Richard, I just had a talk with this guy about driving and cars, and you know Richard.
yeah,
I put him on the speakerphone and I got on the computer and he said 183.010 and blah blah and uh, subsection 2 and 101 and I got a list of about 14 of these ORSs, right? And I
that's
have
a
to go
lot.
to yeah, I go to each one and read it and then go to the next one and then I'm trying to skip ahead on it because I'm an hour into this and I don't even want to be into it. And I
Right,
don't care
right.
about I quit driving years ago. You know, that's a sidetrack. And he won't have it. Richard's
Yeah.
into it. Boy, he says, "No,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
now when you get to subsection 8, you have to go back to 153 point and I'm going, oh, but I got it all transcribed and written down, and like
Good.
under the optional titling rule, when you actually read it, it says you have to request title and registration on your car. You have to request it. If you don't request it, it's not required.
Wow,
So,
that's
so
interesting. Well, yeah. Well, one thing I want to point out here, because this is being recorded, and I think it's important for people who don't know, and most of those who are listening to this probably do, but traveling, we have a right to travel free and unencumbered from state to state across our nation. And we also have without charge, and that goes for toll roads. We should not be having toll roads, but we're getting them
we have the
to,
right to
to
by
travel.
right use the highway.
Yes. And driving is commercial. Okay, so they have called us drivers of vehicles, which can be a truck, a van, anything with wheels. And so therefore they can charge us, they can require we go to DEQ, all of the things which of course, has to do with climate change and all of the stuff about that. So yeah, and so buying into these policies, because that's what they are, they're ideas that are given to us by not us, but we go along with, we shrug, we laugh, we say, well, that's how it is. I yield.
Yep, shrug, and that's how it is. I would like everybody that ever sees this to comprehend this thought. Where we are right now, it's down to not just good and evil or good and bad, but it's right down to righteous, moral, understanding, comprehending, not kidding yourself, knowing who you are and what you're doing, and being committed to that good and righteous being that you're supposed to be by responsible action, or you're like the guy we had lunch with. He's accepting of evil, and he accepts evil until finally he has acquiesced to evil. He may not be an evil person to have lunch with,
Not at all.
but he would just as soon have lunch with an evil person as one of us that's looking to
Address
bring,
evil, to address it.
yes,
Hmm.
bring de jure and God, whoever that happens to be, for whoever is thinking about it. And I'm not trying to put it in, but there's a line right there, and it is a division, and it's got to be recognized. There's just too damn many of them on the evil side to acquiesce to any of it. And I yield.
One thing that I want to say about that is that um, we're doing the kind of work that anyone can do who knows very little, and that is to just stand up to those who are wielding power or authority over us and ask the questions bold-faced, like, well, what do you think about such and such? Why do you think that? Where does that come from? Those are really important questions. And the deceit is replete in our culture, unfortunately. It comes from the top down, and it comes from those of us amongst ourselves who think that we're speaking truth, but it really isn't. Because uh, I will just use the example of our current situation right now, with being told one thing and then having it shift right under our feet, and it feels like deceit. And that's something that we are always having to be wary of and address, because just like this uh, man who we met, um, there may be a point in time where the system bites him. He's going along with it. He's supporting it by virtue of his place in it, his position, and what he thinks about it, and the part he plays, and that it's okay because that's what it is. But wait till, if something happens, he ends up having to go the course that we've taken, because so many of us who sign up for the assembly, who care about what's happening and want to do something about it, have had an imposition or a violation on them that is unreconcilable. And so that's why we are in the assembly and doing what we're doing. We're not having it anymore. We're just not. I yield.
Unalienable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, freedom from imposition of things that have no purpose, no value, in fact, can be harmful to our psychological, economical, physical, emotional well-being. And that's going on big time right now in our school systems, in our environment, in our policy making, all of it. And I'm saying our, meaning our culture. Even today on the front page of the Oregonian, front page, big color, two pictures, headline, Queens and Kings celebrating Passover. It was a gay and lesbian display celebrating Seder. And that was the front page of the Oregonian. So with that, I yield.
Okay. And this is to everybody, everywhere, in all assemblies of men and women in the de jure jurisdiction. Your bona fides. The Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly has the bona fides of all of us that have joined. They're the jury pool. That's us. And I want every one of us, is that pretty clear?
Yes.
I want every one of us to be carrying this. We don't sell them because we're not in the business of doing that. But William knows how to order them and how to get them to you. And you have to pay for them. But I think all of us, and so far, there's a bunch in the general population of the Jural Assembly that doesn't do very much and only shows up occasionally. You know who you are. You need to get personal identification, photo ID of who you are, and get them in a lot of 100 or 200. And photo ID of yourself, who you are and what you're representing. And on the back is the definition of who you are. And you should actually be carrying that on every other state, commonwealth, and territory. Wherever you are, you should have your de jure identification and a photo ID card, a presentation card of who you are in this jurisdiction.
Yeah,
And I yield.
one that's not issued by the government. It's issued by the people for the people. So that is another, it's a subtle but significant declaration and bona fides of who we are.
Mindset.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think we've covered yesterday's lunch pretty good. Do you have
Well,
any more you want to say?
yeah, I just want to say I do appreciate him meeting with us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's hard to describe or define the difference between someone's ideas and how we judge who we think they are. I don't want to be in a place of misjudging him or mischaracterizing him. I appreciate the fact that he's willing and open-minded enough to have conversation and reasonably and not argumentatively. I mean, it was not heated on any level by any one of us. We were having conversation, the likes of which is rare these days. And I really want to end on a positive note and say thank you for that opportunity to have good discussion. Because it's a wrangling, you know, we have to wrangle with these issues and be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
use our words and our minds and our thoughts and feelings, because that's all of who we are and more, and put it into dialogue that has relevance and meaning. And I will say one more thing. I commented to you on Skype. I didn't have an opening to say to him, I suspect, if you allow it, that having had these conversations with Ron might alter your world in a very positive way. Open it up.
Thank you,
Because
Charlie.
Yeah, because once someone is willing to look at all of it, what you came with in terms of your ideology and what someone else is proposing, and has evidence of it, and then you can wrangle with the words or the meanings of the words, because every word can have a different meaning. We know that. We've talked about that on many recordings and in all of our meetings, almost every one of them. Words matter, and they it can be triggers. So I appreciate yesterday. It was good.
It
Thank
was good. Thank
Yeah,
you, Charlie.
thank you.
And I yield.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying. Then he jumps out of the car, and he's got both his hands up. And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air, He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, just shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.